Great. Okay. Welcome, everybody. So this is going to be the training for our new process for Smartsheet funding distribution. And as I mentioned in the email, this is a mandatory training because it's something that I want everybody to be familiar with moving forward.
Okay.
And
Okay, sorry.
So this, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if someone's talking to you or not.
Yeah, I had to start up my next meeting, sorry.
Okay, and yeah, so I will have a recording for after, and we've created a lot of different resources in the hopes of touching different modalities when you're trying to learn both a new software and for some of you, a brand new process. So hopefully that will be helpful in the future. A lot of this is in response to us not having access to IT Works anymore, but it's also, I'll go through some of the foundation of it, of why we're switching over this process. So just for the agenda, we have a lot to talk about actually. So I'm gonna kind of give you the background for some of you of what a funding distribution is, why we decided to change the process, talk about, I'm going to walk you slowly through the Smartsheet, which is the main thing you'll be using, and then talk through the monthly process of updating your funding distribution, and then go through a few scenarios of what you'll need to do when you need to update it. I'll briefly talk about requesting PETs, which is going to be brand new for some of you. So I know those are payroll electronic transfers. So we'll go through that. And then I'm going to go through some points of next steps for all of you. And then this is an ongoing project that Pip and I have been working on. So I'm going to go through kind of where I see this going and what is still needed for this overall project. And then hopefully in the end, I will have time for some questions and even feedback, because I'm sure there will be many. So to start, what is a funding distribution? Some of you might have seen a spreadsheet like this that I evolved from Sarah Trimmer's spreadsheet. So this is what a funding distribution might look like, and what it shows what projects we're on and what time is being put on which projects. I'll say right up front, I know that some of you have never seen these before ever, because they've been kind of worked on in the background. And part of this is so that you do know what they look like and you know where your time is going and when. And others of you are quite familiar with these spreadsheets, so it won't be brand new, and it's just kind of an update of what you've already been doing. So these are quite important, especially for the grant work that we do, because every time we invoice our sponsors, it's directly pulling from what is in the system. So the spreadsheet that I showed you on the previous slide is not technically what's being input. Every month, the fiscal team goes into our system, HCM, and updates as needed any changes of your funding distribution. So then anything that's in the system there is taken and used directly for our invoicing. So it needing to be accurate is quite important because it affects how much is being billed to all of our projects, which everyone knows is, is a big deal. And this is a little convoluted, but funding distributions are actually predicted time spent. So we open up our monthly funding distributions. So let's say if we're doing it for July, we're going to update July at the beginning of July, and then it's going to get paid out after the next month. And then so we're actually like looking forward and predicting what we're going to be spending our time on. And then our EPERs, which I'm always like, why do we have to do both of these? So the EPERs are actually, confirming that is actually what happened. So we predict what our distribution is going to be, and then our EPERs are looking backwards and confirming that that's correct. So why are we changing this process? Looking just kind of small at just this, funding distributions as a whole. I wanted there to be a way to increase transparency, like I've already said, and make it so that you all can log in whenever you want during the month and take a look at your distributions, as well as make changes so that you're not having to, remember to email me or email to make that change, and you can kind of just do it in the moment. So I thought, and then also for you all, folks who might not have seen their distributions before, just to have a better sense of what this is. It's important to increase accuracy, like I said, and make sure that we are actually billing time that we're actually spending, as well as able to make changes each month. The next one is big, increase efficiency, and I mean this on both sides. So for us, for the admin team and for you all, this is a pretty, it can be a pretty automated process. So right now it's pretty manual and having to email me and then I email you, and there's just a lot of different steps right now. So the hope is just that we're going to make it more automated so that you all can focus on your research and I can help with some of the other tasks that aren't this, these detailed funding distributions. So the other thing that is pretty important is that this should lower the audit risk. I've noticed, previously a lot was just held in the brain, and I didn't have as much context. So there has been a lot of mistakes since I've started with the funding distributions, and that makes it so we have to do a lot of those transfers, fixing the mistakes after the fact, the PETs. And when we get audited, PETs are the first place that auditors will look. So the more PETs that we have, the bigger audit risk that we're facing. So the hope is to decrease the number of PETs and therefore have less of an audit risk. And then this is kind of the same as admin or as efficiency, but I'm hoping that this will lower administrative burden for both the admin team and for you all. Again, I know it might seem counterintuitive because I'm introducing a new process for some of you, but really the hopes are that this is just a quick, you're gonna log in, spend 10 minutes on this each month instead of the elongated time that we've been trying to fix things for some of you. So hopefully overall across the board, it will lessen our administrative burden. And then looking at the bigger picture, as I've mentioned, a lot of these things are somewhat replacing what I think IT Works was doing. So the reason we're moving it onto Smartsheet is because this will make it so we can really easily pull effort reporting. So for your RPPRs, when you need to know who's on your project and what amount of time and what money was being spent on it, we'll be able to pull reports really easily by speed type and not have to be adding things from different places or relying on HCM, which doesn't necessarily show us the full picture. Similarly, we'll be able to have reports of everybody's salaries separate from the funding distribution that I'm going to show you. And that'll make it so once we build it out, each PI will be able to have a good projection of what their spending is based on personnel time. So that's something that we all have noticed is missing right now. So I'm hoping that will be helpful for you all. And then this is just one idea that I've had and I'm sure we'll come up with more, but I can see us creating a template for other supports so that we can pull numbers directly from this spreadsheet and into a other support template. And so you don't have to spend all the time that we have to spend on other supports. And I'm sure that you all will think of things that we can use Smartsheet and these funding distribution sheets as we move forward and as you start using them. So next I'm going to move on to just talking through the actual Smartsheet. And I have provided in these slides exactly what I'm gonna go through, but I'll do it for now. I'll just do it on the actual sheet. But when you look back on the slides, you can use the actual slides. Okay, so once you all log in, and I'm not gonna go through logging in right now. We do have a video for that I'll link at the end if you haven't been able to log in yet. So you should see this once you log in, and then you're gonna go to your folder here, and then you'll go to funding distribution. We've only shared right now, we've only shared your funding distribution sheet with you. Eventually, supervisors and lead PIs will also have access so that we can all see what's going on, like to their team's distribution sheets. So you won't see this many, but I'm gonna pull up mine. So these are what the sheets look like. They're quite similar to the one that I showed you before. It's just on Smartsheet. Smartsheet acts a lot like Excel, so it was a little intimidating to me at first because it's not Excel, but you will get used to it. So just to go through the colors at first, just to get you started, the light gray are things that are like formulas, so don't touch those. Those are automatically formulated. And then the dark blue is just display, like, deep design. So that just is like dividing the categories. And then dark gray here is going to show your funding cliffs. So that just is a way to markate when we know the speed type ends. So we've tried to make it so there's multiple ways to catch changes over time. I've been playing with this for the training, so it's not quite right, but that's okay. Okay, so I'm gonna walk you through from left to right. So up at the top here, I have attached two important things. The first is just a document. It's like a Word document that shows pretty much everything I'm saying, and also it links to all the trainings and answers some frequently asked questions. So you can always access that here if you log in 2 weeks and forget everything I've said. So that should be helpful. And then here is your PET form, which we'll go over in a bit. So everything is set up like a database. So everybody across the whole department has the same spreadsheet. And that's also why this is all repetitive, so that when we pull those reports, we're able to, everything matches up and aligns. So just make sure when you're adding lines and stuff that you are actually pulling down this additional info. So employee ID, position number, I've put them all in for you. If they're ever missing and you don't know what yours is, let me know, I can help. And then department number, for some of you are probably like, why do we need this? We're all in the same department. Some folks are funded by different departments. So this is a way for us to markate that. And for me, if I'm pulling a report, then I can really easily filter out or filter in our department. And then employee name, this is a key feature for Smartsheet. So I'm able to physically, tag you on your own funding distribution. And then we have some of the automations are set up to email you from what's in this column. And then in the reports, that'll help us as well. Funding type, pretty self-explanatory, gives you the option to choose between grant, teaching, CAIANH department, or other. Lead PI, eventually I'll probably have this also tagged so that the lead PIs can see what's going on, but I haven't done that yet. Name of the speed type, and then of course the speed type. For the name, we do want these to be the same across different projects, or across different sheets. So don't change that too much. The numbers will obviously do that for us. It's not a huge deal if these are different, but it will be easiest. And then you'll notice that sometimes you may need to put a TBD in the speed type, but we'd rather have the information that we have in there instead of having something that's inaccurate. And then these are the actual funding distributions. So it just shows you from, how much each month I'm spending. This is just gonna bother me. Hold on. Okay, so this will show, it shows you how much on each project I'm spending. And we did do both fiscal years, so FY24 and FY25, and that was based on feedback from some PIs saying that, we know that your budget years cross fiscal years, so it doesn't give you the full picture if we just did the one fiscal year. So I understand it's a very wide spreadsheet, but it'll be helpful for looking at the actual budget years. This is adding up, and then I'll mention here that these are all actual time spent. So if someone is only working 20 hours a week, this will add up to 0.5. It won't add up to 100. So it's like the actual time, which is what you're used to seeing. Just so you understand. And then up here is where I'll show you how to do it, but this is where you let me know that there's a change from the previous month, or that if you've noticed that there's a PET needed. As I mentioned before, if it's dark gray, it shows the speed type ends. And you'll notice on this one, aim ahead, there's a new speed type each budget year. So that's why I had this gray out, even though there's going to be continued funding in the next year. So then here's some additional information about each speed type. This column, to be perfectly honest, is something I'm still working on. The concept is that it'll take the average for your budget, your project year, so that you can see if you're matching up with what you actually proposed. The issue is it's a very manual process, so you physically have to show that it's averaging. So I've done it for a few of your spreadsheets, but you can play around with it if you want, but you can also ignore it if it's not helpful right now. The proposed effort is just hard coded in, so that's just what you propose this person would put on that project for the full year, for the full project year. And then these numbers are really important, and I'm noticing already as we've started to use these templates that folks aren't necessarily putting them in. So please, when you're adding in new speed types, make sure that you're adding in this information, because this is how we really cut down on mistakes. So you're showing your budget start date, your budget end date, which is usually a year unless there's a no cost extension or something like that, but pretty simple. Those are pretty self-explanatory. Speed type end date, which is a little more complex, so I'll explain it now. So if your project does not have automatic carry forward, it will have a new speed type each year. So that means that your speed type end date will be the same as that budget end date. If your speed type, if your project does have automatic carry forward, then that means that your speed type does not change from year to year. So your speed type end date will be the same as your project end date. So if you're ever wondering, you don't know which your project falls under, all that information is actually in the speed type list on Aramis. So you're welcome to look at that. And then project end date is the overall project end date. Notes is a good place for you to say something like, oh, I'm applying for this, or if you have a question for me, or if something's not certain, that's a good place to put that. So over here is, again, that's automatically calculating, and this is specifically for HCM. And it looks the same for me, but when people are not at 1 FTE, then this is calibrated. So no matter what, it will equal 100%. So if you ever notice it's not equaling 100%, then something is not right with the formula. So don't need to worry much about that. And then over here as well, you don't need to worry about, this is when we process PETs, this is how we keep track of them over here. Okay. So. Next, I'm gonna just go through how to add and like kind of when you're going in and changing what you're gonna do each month or more than each month. So I went through a lot of this, but I'll go through it again. I'll go through a few other additional things. So we went through the light gray, dark gray, blue. The spreadsheet is set up so that if the speed type, if you've put in a speed type end date that's more than or less than 90 days from today's date, that whole row will turn orange. So that's a good way. If you log in and you see an orange row, that's either you would change it or you'd, message the PI and say, what do I do? And then you need to make a plan so that it's not still going to hit it after that speed type is ended. If it's red, which you hopefully won't see too much, it means the speed type has already ended. So that's also conditional formatted. Red text is what you'll use when you put in new information. It's just another way to let me know that you've made a change. And then yellow is usually when I'll highlight that when I don't know what's going on or I need you to double check something or fill something in. That'll be yellow. Great. I just got the order of my presentation wrong. So now we're going to go through the process and then I'll go through the specific changes. Do we have any questions? Because that was a lot so far. Okay, keep moving along. Great. Okay, so process. On the third day of each month, Smartsheet will automatically email you your spreadsheet and it'll say time to update your funding distribution and it'll have a link to your spreadsheet. And then you will open that up and take a look. You will, and that's either if you know you have no changes, like still log in because you just want to double check and get in the habit of that. So you'll sign in, you'll check if you have changes or not. If you do have changes, you'll mark them in red by the 8th day of the month. So not giving you much time, but the idea is that, if you do have changes throughout the month, you can input them before the 3rd, but this is just like the reminder to remember to do it. And then you also have to mark that you have checked it and you don't see any changes. So that's by the 8th. And then whenever you put in a change, not, throughout the whole month, I'll get an email that says there's been a change. And so that is how I know, that's how I keep track. And then monthly, I meet with Aaron and we go through HCM and input all these changes. And that's on the 10th of the month. So that's our hard cutoff because after that, we've already input everything and payroll is starting to process. So that's by the 10th of the month. So now I'll try to go through each of these steps for you. So when you're just logging in to check and you don't have any, you don't have any changes or you're not sure, what you're going to look for is, like I said, the orange rows is going to be your first thing. So that means you need to make a plan so that you're not going to be on that speed type when it ends. And then you want to just double check that your FTE at the top of the spreadsheet is adding up correctly. So if you're working full time, it should be adding up to 100%. If you're working 50%, it should be adding up to 50%. So just or if it's over, that means there's something that needs to change there. And then, thinking programmatically, you would look and say, oh, I'm 20% on this project and I didn't work on it this month. That might be a time that you can think about, where you're actually putting your time on which projects. And then, the question if any projects are missing. So I actually put a lot of time on a project last week or last month that isn't actually on my distribution. So that would be a time that you would reach out or, add that in. And then here are the different things that you probably will need to update throughout. So, and I'll go through them one by one. And that is a new distribution. So just like kind of fiddling with the numbers because of what time you put on what projects. There's a new speed type for the same project. There's a new speed type for a new project. No changes are needed where a PET is needed. So those are kind of the different things that I see you adding. So I'll go back to my spreadsheet and walk you through each of those. Let's see if I can do this technologically. Okay. So the first one is just a new distribution. So let's say I log in and I know that actually I need to put 60% on aim ahead instead of 50, because I know that there's a big project coming up this coming month, and I'm going to be putting a lot more time on that. So what I would do there is I would just put 60%. And I would make that red because it's a change I made. And then I would say, oh no, I'm at 110. So obviously I need to decrease something else. So there, oh, I know actually there's like a lull in RC Tech this next month. So I'm going to be putting 15% there. And I'll turn that red as well. And then I double check that everything's adding. And then up here, all I have to do is write change. So that's our first type of change that we might do. Great. Change it back for our next exercise. All right. So our next one is going to be that I have a brand new project that I'm working on, and there's a new speed type for it and a new project. And even if maybe it's way in the future, it's still good to put it in if you know it's happening. So you can always put it in earlier than I'm saying. Okay, so I've already started this. So what I would do is I would go to the left and I would fill in everything. So for this, you can just drag. You do want to make sure that when you drag, just like Excel, that you drag like that so that the numbers don't start counting up. So do that. And then, fill in all the other information, fill in the lead PI, the name of the new project, and the number of the new speed type. And then what I recommend doing before you add in your numbers is just going all the way over and adding in this, just so you get it over with and so that you know it's in. Let's see if this will work. Great. So I just did, the proposed effort is 10%. I know the budget starts on 7/1. I know it ends on 6/31. And I know that the speed type changes each year, which means that I don't have automatic carry forward. So my speed type also ends on 6/31, but I know it's a 5-year project. So, ends in 2027. And then what I'll do is add in the percentage. So I'll just do 10% across the board. And I'll turn that red because it's all new. And similarly, right then, I'm not at 100%, or I'm over 100%. So let me update something else that I've gotten permission to, that I know is going to be accurate. So do that. Oops. Great. And then the last step, once I've made sure everything is adding up correctly, the last step is going to be change. And there it is. Great. And then actually, so what this change is showing is that it's changing from the previous month. So even though I did change this, it's the same as July, so I don't need to write change up here. Great. So that's our next one. Hopefully so far we're all following. And our, the next scenario is that we have a new speed type, same project. So this is what I started to explain with, you know, for example, aim ahead, which I know each year gets a new speed type. So I want to make sure that I mark that. So it's really important with this, you know, since we're treating this like a database, to not, I think in the past we may have crossed out sometimes and put in a new speed type, but instead, even if it's the same project, like I did here, it's best to just show the new line. It's not best, you should do the new line, so that when we're pulling numbers for an old year, it's not gonna mix everything together, so it's keeping everything separate. So I'll do it down here. So let's pretend that the one that we just made, it will have a new year coming in, a new speed type coming in July. So what I would do, same thing that we've been doing, drag. And this red. And then this is helpful, you know, just do the next PY, so we know that we can differentiate it. And then, as I said before, it's okay if while you're setting it up, if you don't have the speed type yet, it's okay to write to be determined, and then we can fill that in later. So then what I would do is, I know that that starts here, so I put 10% here. And then drag that across. And that's gonna mess up because and then I'll turn that all red as well. And of course, I would still fill in all this information to the appropriate year. Great. And then the last step is going to be obviously, like we've been doing, marking change at the top. Great. So the next scenario is that you have no changes. So a lot of you, this will be you every month, especially, you know, like PRAs who are on 1 or 2 projects, that stays pretty consistent. So all you'll need to do in that case is you log on, you say, yep, looks good. And then you write no change. And that's all you have to do. But that's just so that I know that you've just taken a look that month. Great. And then this is our new, so the last one that I've mentioned is a PET. And in the past, PETs, we do them when we realize there has been a mistake, and we will continue to do that as I will continue to do that, and we'll continue to catch them on our own. But I thought that adding this in for you all to see if there was an issue in the past makes it so you can request a PET, and hopefully we'll cut down on you know, missing some of these issues throughout the year. So what is a PET? It is a payroll electronic transfer, so it fixes mistakes made on the funding distribution from previous months. Reasons that you can process a PET is that, like I've kind of been mentioning, the speed type was not yet created when the previous month was paid out, but you were already, you know, the new project year started and OGC didn't yet create a new speed type. So you had to hit a different speed type and then change it. So that would be a good reason to need a PET. An old speed type ended and we didn't catch it in time and it hit a different account, or other, you know, general human error that might have created a mistake that we didn't that it made it so the distribution did not match the actual work performed. Unallowable reasons for a PET is that you are at the end of a project and you realize, oh, I have a lot of funds left in this project. I want to try to figure out how to use them. So I'm going to change back all of my, a lot of my months ahead behind me. That's not an acceptable way. That's not an acceptable reason for a PET. And then anything beyond 90 days ago, we cannot process PETs for. And that's because it lines up with EPERS and with different auditing that we do. So we can't change more than 90 days. So just a little bit more information. Just a reminder that we process these on the 10th of every month. So if you log in and you do notice that the current month hasn't changed yet, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's a mistake, don't need to request a PET. You just need to change the numbers, and then we'll input that by the 10th. Filling out our new internal PET form does not guarantee that we will make the change. PETs, as I mentioned with the auditing, are really fiscally risky. So we'll have to evaluate, on a one-on-one basis, whether or not the change is appropriate, and we'll reach out to you to follow up with questions. So how to process the PET, the first thing that you'll do is open up your funding distribution. Let's say it's currently October, and I look back and I say, oh my gosh, my August distribution is wrong. That's not how I spent my time. I'm not sure how, why that is, anyway, whatever. So I know that there's a mistake in August. I'll write PET needed, and then I'll fix what the mistake was. And there shouldn't be a need to fiddle with this too much. I think folks that have asked for, that we've done PETs for, have known why. So you shouldn't be doing, it doesn't need to be totally entirely accurate for exactly what you spent your time on. That's what the EPERS are for, but it's kind of bigger reasons that we're making these changes. So just to be really clear about that. So what you'll do is you'll make that change. Great. Now it's marked on your sheet, and then you'll scroll over here. And let's see if I can make, yeah. And then you'll click on the PET form, and this is really quick. It goes through exactly what I just went over, mostly word for word. And then you put your name, your email, which months you're trying to change, the reason for your change, which is important because we'll put that directly in when we make a PET. And then it just confirms that you did the two things that I just showed you. Clicking here to confirm that your funding, you made the changes red on your funding distribution sheet, because otherwise we won't know what to do, and then you typed PET needed, and then you submit. So that is the PET process. As I said, I'm hoping we don't have a lot of these, but there's always some. So great. And then just to kind of close the loop on all of this, just after you put in your changes, I think I've mentioned most of these things, but we'll receive whatever the changes are, I'll receive an email that shows that changes were made. I might follow up with you with any questions. And then the other grant lifecycle manager will meet with Aaron, and we input funding distribution changes each month on the 10th. And then for PETs, we'll review the request and approve or deny it. And then we'll update the Smartsheet accordingly. And usually Lisa will be the one to actually input the PETs into the system. And as we make changes, we'll turn everything back to black. So once we've acknowledged the change, then that'll be black. So hopefully when you log into your spreadsheet each month, it won't have any red on it, but we'll see.
Sarah, could
Yes.
you show where you got the PET form
Yeah,
real quick? And
I haven't found a way to make it more visible on Smartsheet, but maybe I will in the future. So you have two documents at the corner of your sheets. And there's a chance that some of you don't have it yet because I was just adding in the last few, but the top left is the process. So I just click on that paperclip and then click on the link here. And then the next one is the PT form. So it'll say PT form, and then I click on the link.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yeah. And great. And then I figured I just have a few Smartsheet tips that might help, because I know it's new to a lot of us. It was new to me, and Hip might have some others because he's been using it a lot more. So as I've said, it works a lot like Excel. So if you're able to do it in Excel, like dragging, like I showed you the formulas, it's similar. The main difference is that that I am still struggling with is that like there's not the formula sheet at the top. So you have to double click to get in, and you shouldn't be making many formulas, but if you are, it's all within the cell instead of at the top there. But you can drag formulas and use the dollar signs the same way to lock cells and things like that. And then the other thing is that, so the way that we've set it up is that Hip has the upgraded license, so he has full access to everything, and then all of us have less access. So there's sometimes that you'll try to use a feature and it'll say can't do this, and also it means that you don't have as much capabilities to edit the spreadsheet, which is on purpose so that we can keep them all the same. So none of us can update the columns and things like that. So and there's certain things that you won't be able to update. And then I just learned this. So yeah, as I just mentioned, there's this leftmost column has some important things. So it has paperclip, it has you can add comments by row. It's a little frustrating that you can't add columns by cell, but so if you have a comment for me, or if I have a comment for you, you can do that, and then it kind of shows every comment on the sheet over here in the conversation. And then you can also, if you want, set a reminder for yourself to remind you to update something in the future. So you can do that by clicking this little bell, and then looking at all the full Smartsheets. It may be helpful for you to favorite the sheet so that when you log in, you can just go to favorites. And then once you have access to your team's sheets, then that might be a way for you to have all four of the people who are on your project just favorited. Might be helpful. And then you'll also be able to, I find this helpful, we get these emails every third of the month, so those notifications will show up here. Those are all my fun tips. The last thing I would say is that there's a lot of tutorials and YouTube videos and things online that are very helpful if you want to, reach the capacity of what Smartsheets does. Okay. And then our last point of conversation, the next steps. So what you'll need to do now is I've hopefully, except for like one or two of you, have shared with you your Smartsheet. So what you'll want to do is review all these process documents, make sure you know how to log into Smartsheet. So like I said, there's a video that'll show you how to sign in for the first time. And then you'll want to walk through your Smartsheet for FY24 as it is now, either on your own or if probably with your supervisor or your lead PI if you are not the supervisor or lead PI. So you'll want to walk through it, make sure everything's accurate. There's a few, make sure you address any of the yellow cells and that everything that we copied over is correct. If I haven't made any comments, you'll want to respond to those. And then if you have any old feed types in there that are not, that aren't being used anymore, you could delete those rows. And then of course, definitely try to do what you can with the resources we've created. And then if you still are having trouble, you can reach out to me or Hip and we'll get you started. I will say that there's a few of you that I'm still kind of making some updates. So you might see me changing some things as well, but don't be afraid to go in now and start making those updates. And then after we kind of get that all ready, that might be a bit of a lift right at the beginning, but after that, then you'll just start doing your monthly updates each month as you get the emails. And then as your speed types are changing, your projects are ending, you can log in separately and change those. And then what's coming for us as far as this project in the short term, like I've said, I'm gonna find a way to tag the supervisors or the lead PIs so that you have access and might even also get the reminder emails. Since you're all in these now, I'm sure I'm going to, have a lot of feedback because you're the ones using them. So Hip and I are going to start meeting every other week to kind of address those any changes. I'm sure there'll be a few iterations and additions to these spreadsheets. And then, of course, continue to input these new funding distributions each month into HCM. The next step for this overall project is to build out a report or a few reports that we will, so you can easily calculate personnel calendar months for your RPPR, and then also personnel expenses like I talked about, and so that you can in the end use it similarly to IT Works and do an overall expense forecasting. And I also mentioned this one as well. Another project that I hope to work on regarding this is building it out a template to quickly be able to create other supports. So we envision Smartsheets working where each lead PI will have like a dashboard. And so they'll be able to see a lot of these reports in addition to their funding distributions and their funding teams, and their teams funding distributions. So that's kind of where we're headed, but it will take a while to get there. And then this is just all the resources that I've mentioned in one place. So these slides are hopefully going to be helpful. Process document, which I also said is linked onto the sheets, and includes all the videos, the PET form. So we have like a little YouTube video, a YouTube channel where so far there's just these two videos. So there's one that shows how to log in, and there's one that shows how to update your distribution. And then we'll also likely put this recording of this training on there. So I'm sure throughout the years, we will add more fiscal admin training videos into this channel, but right now it's just those two. And then once you've exhausted all of those resources, feel free to email the CAIANH fiscal email and we will try to help you. That is the end of my presentation. So does anybody have any questions? Great.
Sarah, quick
Yeah.
question. For the, you were adding in like the speed type, and then start end date and all of that. Is that in the speed type spreadsheet?
Yeah.
So that you would, okay, perfect.
Yeah, and most of it, like if you log in, it should already be in there. So you shouldn't be starting from scratch. And then otherwise, if it's a new project, PIs will know from their notice of award or from even from MFIN if you do it that way.
I have a quick question, Sarah. The PIs can still see distribution somehow of everyone on their projects?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm gonna do like next week. So currently you can't, but yeah, we kind of just realized that like like a week ago. We're like, oh shoot. So yeah, we're gonna make it so you have access to those sheets, and yeah, I'll tag you as well.
Okay.
So instead of it just saying Kaufman, it'll have your tag. I think that'll, yeah.
Awesome. Cool, thank you. And a huge thank you for doing this, because it really looks great and it removes that information out of that big black box.
Yeah, that's the goal.
So
Thank you.
I'm very excited to start using this.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, so I'm happy to stay on if anybody has already tried to log in, and had issues, happy to help. And I do recommend like bookmarking Smartsheets so that you just remember that it's there. Cynthia, did you have a question or did you just?
Yeah, just wanted to show my face. No. My question was like, just to verify at the very least, each month, if there's, you said most will be pre-populated based on what expected funding distributions are, but at the very least, I log in, I see that there's no change and I write no change at the top.
That's it, yeah.
Okay.
And then I get an email that says, no, you know, that you've done that, so that's helpful, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And you had a list of resources, is that on a G drive someplace, or is it?
I can put it on the G drive, it's in the. Yeah, it's in the funding distribution, so I'll send out like a follow-up email to
Okay.
this with the recording and with all that and show you where everything is, yeah. Everything is like cross-referenced and hopefully it's all online, so it's not like I'm updating 5 documents at once, but just so that. Because I know that folks, we like piloted this with a few people and people really mentioned having different ways of learning something like this. So that's why we tried to do the videos and the writing and PowerPoint, so that everyone can learn the way they want.
And I know we've like been promising it for a little while now, but we are working on a new CAIANH intranet. And so we'll definitely have all of these things, you know, housed there. So we're hoping to have something next month. So it might be a little bit rudimentary to start, but I think it'd be good to have a lot of these things in one place.
Yeah, good idea.
So just stay tuned.
Okay, that's it.